Welcome to this episode of Meet GITA. And today we have Rene Wienholtz on the show. Rene and I have been in conversation and bars since a couple of years and been talking about impact. And he's a very active member of the GITA community. So let's hear from you, Rene. What are you working on at the moment? What are you investing your time in?
Yeah, thank you very much, by the way, for having this interview with you. By the way, in a world-spanning interview, as you were sitting in Costa Rica right now. I'm really jealous, by the way. But yeah, there was the palms in the background. Yeah, to come back to your question, what I'm doing right now, basically, I answered that question by just let's say 2 minutes of history. Where it came from. I'm basically a tech. I'm a tech guy. So I was the CTO, CIO of Strato, which is a web host company, like, for instance, GoDaddy in the US. One-on-one, etc. So that was basically my background.
Not just one web hosting company, but I think the second largest in Germany, something like this.
It is the second largest in Germany. Yes. Okay. It's basically define a market segment and you're always the largest one. No, but it is about the second largest in Germany. It's one of the, let's say, Europe's leading web host companies. So that's my background, and over the years I was an active business angel, and due to certain, let's say, accelerator programs, I came across for impact startups, for profit, for impact. And basically, I was thinking that's a good idea to invest, and it would be very, very easy to find people that invest along with me in these companies, as they're doing good things for the world and they're for profits. So basically, it's the best thing you can imagine. But it was very, very tricky to get investors because for one side, the classical VCs, etc., there were tree huggers, and for the other side, basically those ones that are interested in impact, let's say the foundations and trusts, they said, wow, great impact, but we cannot invest directly in startups. That's an asset class we are not allowed to own. And so they in fact, it was even trickier to get money from for them instead being easier. So that was the touch point, the first touch point of impact investing. And so I thought, folks, we need to get kind of impact angel syndicate or something and invest it to these companies. And it was a wise idea. And that was my first touch point, I think a couple of years ago. It was 5 years, 6 years ago, with for-profit impact investing. And I'm also connected to Fineo, due to, I know Andreas Rickert, which is the CEO of Fineo, due to my work for another supervisory board. And he was approaching me as I was leaving Strato. After 17 years, I thought it is a good idea. I'm in the mid-40s right now. If you want to start something big and something new, that's the right time, probably. And he was approaching me as my intention grew to step out of Strato and to do something new, because they were setting up a fund, a tech for impact fund. So in fact, invest in tech companies. That's basically what I'm doing. This is the reason my background is tech innovation. And it's about tech companies that are for good, for profit, and they at least tackle one of the SDGs. So that was what was the kind of very rough criteria. And we were setting up the fund that I was doing together with Ilko Thun. Ilko Thun is my co-founder, and we were setting up that fund. And due to that, making a proper impact fund is not easy, by the way. And we want to do it differently. So one thing was basically, you know that, but the audience knows that probably too. Impact funds in general are very small. So very small compared to the rest of the, let's say, investing world. That means where the typical fund starts in the VC world, and the tech VC world starts at, let's say, 100 million or 50 or 100 million. The majority of funds start at, let's probably say, 10 million. Probably if they're first-time funds, probably 10 to 20 million if they're big. But that's very, very small. And so to operate them very cost efficiently, that was kind of a challenge. So because if you want to have, we all want to have great impact traction. But that's only possible if you invest the money in those impact companies and not in the structures. And that's the reason why we said it's a good idea to start with setting up a vehicle that is very cost effective. That was the first thing. Then the second thing was everything about what we're looking at was much too complex in regards of impact reporting. Impact reporting should be joyful, and it should be integrated in your, let's say, communication life. Basically, what we have out there is not the case. Either it's very complicated, the impact reporting, or it is, on the other hand, it is good and simplified in the way that is very unemotional. I mean, we're in the most emotional field of investing that ever existed. Yeah?
Is that why you say joyful? Because that's the first time I've ever heard anybody, including you, say it should be joyful to do impact measurement. Yes. So
it should be, because that's the good thing. That's the whole story. It is about telling the world that your money can not only, let's say, work in your pocket, but it can work for a better world. And that is the kind of storytelling what you need, and what the financial side and the investor side is used to is reporting on financial values. That's something that we got used to. We have frameworks for that. We have auditors for that, everything. But in the world of impact, so let's say the second part of that kind of return that you get is what I call the social and ecological return, is in fact something which is intangible, so to say, or it's very, you can barely understand that, but it can be so joyful if you. We found a way, to make a long story short, we found a way to build a portfolio tool to see where we are investing, in what companies we're investing, at what impact KPIs they're working, and all of these impact KPIs are so easy to understand that even my, let's say, over 70-year-old mother is able to understand that. And that is something, because if we want to make impact investing mainstream, and we have to, by the way, because the so-called SDG gap, the amount of money that we need for solving the SDGs is so big that impact investing needs to become mainstream. And if we need it to become mainstream, everybody needs to understand it. And by the way, even a financial manager of a large corporate or an institutional fund or whatever, is basically, if he has only, or she has only 30 seconds of time, it's a consumer. So that's basically how we tackle that. That we drew, or to get back to your question, by the way, that was not only 2 minutes, but probably 5 minutes. What we do, or what we did, is in fact building a fund with many services around it to make it a proper impact fund. Let's show the portfolio, run it properly, treat impact founders better regarding how do they get behind the steering wheel again, because they are mission driven, etc. And when we were presenting our fund and the services, we were approached by other funds and impact companies too. And they were saying, hey, these fund services that we're building, or these services that you're building around your fund, are great, by the way. If you're ready, tell us. And then Ilko and me were saying, hey, probably if we start a fund, what's our impact, or where do we see how we fit into that impact world, is to bring money to the impact table. That's basically the ultimate thing, because we need to close the SDG gap. And if we're building a fund, we probably have a lever for, let's say, a world of, let's say, 20 or 50 million euros. But if we are setting up, and that's what I'm doing, an impact investment bank, it's not a classic bank, but we call it impact finance boutique. So an investment bank is just a service house dedicated for a certain market, and impact is absolutely different. And that just only by that thing, that not only the financial return is something that is important for the investors, but also the social and ecological return is important. And it's so special that we need a different kind of investment bank that is, by the way, also, and we are also an impact company, even so that this is something that we designed. We're fully BaFin licensed here in Germany, so that's the financial authorities, and that's basically what I'm doing. So we're helping to get money to the impact table and to create financial vehicles and other supporting tools, communication tools, etc., to get there, to close that impact, or that SDG gap rapidly. please.
So I can see that you're really building on what has been attributed to so many people, Alan Kay and many others, saying live in the future and build what's missing. I think testament to that is that you're still, it's very hard to express what you're actually doing, because you're building a piece of infrastructure for a world that isn't there yet, right?
Yeah.
But it's approaching fast, and it has to, because otherwise we're in deep shit, right? So thank you for doing that, first of all. But this is something that is very hard to do, especially since you're doing it in an environment where not everybody yet understands the necessity of this holistic approach of in investments, vehicle, bank, however you want to call it. So those out there listening to this, who understand or are at least curious about how they can interact with you, how they can support you or learn or benefit from you. What is it that you need? What is it that people, where you would be happy for people to reach out to you?
That's a good question. I think the easiest answer, but I think it's a multi-tier answer. The easiest answer is, of course, we need those ones. I mean, there's brilliant people out there thinking about how to make the world better, and they're even able to group people around them that's saying, "Hey, let's put some money on the table to do this." We know where the deal flow comes from, everything, but they never set up a fund, for instance. So basically, we're looking for initiators of impactful financial ideas that need support in running this. By the way, in fact, we're just a factory for kind of, on the one side, we're a factory for fund people that want to operate these funds, but basically never did that before. So, and on the other hand, of course, we need people and impact businesses that say, basically, the idea, it's not about the classic type of fundraising. I think for impact companies, it's different, because blended finance plays a much bigger role. So financing, for instance, designing debt products. So debt products that are consumable, which means, for instance, first part of the debt vehicle is the first loss part, where philanthropic money is inserted, or government money or whatever, to reduce the risk of losing money in the top part. And that top part then can be consumed, for instance, by institutionals. So that's something, we do financial engineering. And of course, what we definitely, from our side, we need, of course, people from the government, from the European Investment Fund, from all over Europe, especially, of course, we're a German-based company, also here in Germany, that are open for these ideas. Because if you want to do these kind of blended finance products, it's necessary to have, let's say, open-minded people that say, that's a good idea, because it's not only about, let's say, these impactful projects, but it's also to have a kind of Kickstarter for, the basic problem is, if you talk to impact investors, and they want to have people from the classic, let's say, investment sector as co-investors, they often get the idea, it's not that we're investing in high risk ventures, it's a kind of double venture, because it's not only a venture, as is a typical, for instance, in the seed and pre-seed investments, but it is also, let's say, something in an unproven market, because there is the thesis out there that you can earn money on solving the world's biggest problems. But I think the track record of that whole topic, that whole industry, is just probably, if you look to the US, for instance, or to certain countries like Netherlands and Nordics, there is a track record of probably 7, if it comes to 10 years, but only with a very small amount of companies. And that's basically, so we need more of these people that are open-minded and a little bit less risk averse, and and of course supporters from, let's say, the governmental areas that help us in designing these products.
Okay, so essentially there's three groups of people. Those who want to deploy money in a structured way into impact investing, those who need that money, and governments that can help you in terms of the policies around that can foster this this very young. I'm struggling to find a good word. It's not an industry, but this thing that's emerging.
It's a kind of between a movement and a market.
Yeah, yeah, right. So yeah, we have to. I find it's very hard to describe this. So I love your way of putting it, between a movement and a market, because we have to move beyond market, but at the same time, market is a very strong and powerful tool to move things in the right direction if you set the incentives correctly. And as I understand, what you're doing is you're providing a whole tool chain for the entire ecosystem to be able to not only set but also measure the direction of the incentives.
I would probably say to measure, but basically to make it more transparent, because I think, especially in the impact investing, and especially in about impact measurement and finding out values on how you act in that market and what's your achievements, what's your output and outcome regarding impact, means I think there will be no golden bullet in finding out the right, let's say, KPIs and something, but probably it's all about transparency. So you should know, if you, for instance, invest in a fund, you should know what are their target, let's say, values, what are their core SDGs that they're working in, what are their investments, what these investments are doing in the market, are they certified or not, and if they're certified, what certificate is it, or whatever. So there's so many, let's say, multiple of questions that you can address, that it's, for me, basically, it's about transparency. It's not about finding the truth. Probably if we find the truth, never, might be. But on the other hand, it's at least we're far from finding a standard way and a standard way and an understandable way of doing this. So it's all about transparency and not about only impact measurement. But it's I mean, even if you look at products like milk, or if you, it's all about finding out what causes this product for good, and probably also what are the negative sides.
Which leads me directly to my last question, which is GITA, because a lot of the things you're addressing with Loom Impact is very, very much linked with what's happening inside of GITA at the moment, and you are contributing a sizable amount of your time into the efforts of GITA. So what is it that brings you to do that? Why do you invest your time into GITA, and why do you think that's actually a good thing to do?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's quite easy to answer. The first thing is that I think instead of organizations that are very large, world-spanning, and they first were, let's say, organized in legal ways and everything, that's what I always say, that's not a, let's say, foundation or other organization that is organized in a classical way, but more in an agile way. So it's finding the right people and defining products, or defining, the first thing is analyzing what's necessary, what's not defined, or where are gaps in the market, and then to define products, which means things that we need for addressing this, let's say, impact investing market, and especially the tech arena, and then to build on it. It's just, I personally feel that we got more traction within the first 8 weeks of existence here in Germany. 8, or is it more? How many weeks do we exist, by the way?
We just did the 3rd Scrum meeting, which means that it must be 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time's running.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to come back to that, so we had a much more traction than I was seeing in other, let's say, much more organized and well-financed products. It's a very diverse setting. So from startups to corporates to big financiers to those ones that are more on the, let's say, on the consulting parts and the organizational parts, etc. Techies, and it's very, very smart persons. But to get the final question, why do we need GITA, is because there is no dedicated network of people that is looking from an angle, not only from an impact angle, but from the tech angle. Because why is tech necessary? It's not that the other parts are not important too, if it's not tech related. But tech solutions in the impact market have one advantage, is smart global scalability. And that's basically it, because you can usually digital solutions or solutions that are, let's say, tech solutions, help to roll out impact effect, much easier than, let's say, in traditional ways. It's not that this is not good to be local, to stay local, something, but that's not the focus of GITA, so to say. So it's about the massive scalability, and of course, I think it's also about finding the right, or let's say, distilling the right projects to place some lighthouses there to say, hey, we can change the world with tech. By the way, tech literally destroyed the world, and probably it's also about to save it.
There's a high probability. Yes, I find that if you are trained in a technology background or in a science background, natural sciences background, there's at least one advantage to the type of thinking that happens, or that you're capable of, which is, it is easier for you to think in layers of abstraction, which is to say that you can distinguish better between systems that are natural and systems that are inherently man-made, right? Mm-hmm. So to use Thomas Björkman's words, which I totally love to bring this home, is if all of humanity got together to decide that we would stop using oxygen, that wouldn't work, right? That's what the natural system dictates. But if all of humanity got together to decide that we don't use money anymore, that would work. But that is something we usually don't question. But if you come from that, from a systems thinking perspective, which is very likely, which you're very likely to have if you can come in with a technological or a scientific background, then it's much easier for you to do the abstraction. And I find that this could be one of the things that GITA can bring to the table, to really, from the foundation, as you said, do some research first, which is happening right now, and then distill that into usable products that look at the man-made part of the system and deal with that.
Wonderfully said. I couldn't add anything, so that's probably
thank you.
The perfect closing remark.
Wonderful. Then let's close it at that. Thank you so much for your time, and see you soon. in the next.
Hopefully, and enjoy your time in Costa Rica. And again, I'm very jealous about your palms in the background.
The weather,
you need to raise your cup again to let the audience see the palms. We found out that raising the cup, by the way, here you see, raising the cup reveals the palms in the background. What an effect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Rene.
Thank you, Thomas. Bye-bye.